Myra was the CEO of a large company that produced kitchen equipment. She was known for being strong, strict, and always busy with meetings. People in the office respected her, but many were also nervous when she walked by. Myra had two young twins, a boy named Aaron and a girl named Lila. They were both 7 years old and very special to her. The twins were deaf, and though they could not hear the world around them, they had a way of noticing details that others missed. Myra loved her children deeply, but balancing her role as a mother and as a company leader was never easy. Her twins often stayed with her at the office after school because she wanted to keep them close. The company had a small lounge near her office where the children usually drew pictures, played with puzzles, or read books. Myra worried that they sometimes felt lonely, but she told herself that being near her was better than being far away. On one cloudy afternoon, the office was quieter than usual. Most of the staff had gone home early after a long week. Myra was still working on reports in her glass-walled office. She looked up now and then to check on Aaron and Lila, who were in the lounge. They were coloring, but their small faces showed boredom. Myra sighed. She knew they needed more joy in their lives than she had been giving them. That was when Myra noticed something unusual. From the corner of the lounge came a soft vibration, a kind of rhythm. She frowned. The twins had put down their crayons and were staring at the far side of the room. Myra stood up and walked closer. There, near the back, was someone she had barely noticed before. He was the janitor, a tall man with simple clothes and gentle eyes. His name was Tom. He usually kept to himself, cleaning quietly during the evenings. He carried buckets for mopping the floors, but today those buckets were upside down in a row. Tom sat on a chair with a stick in each hand, tapping the buckets in a steady rhythm. The twins were drawn to the movement. Though they could not hear the sound, they could see the beat in the way Tom's arms moved and in the way the buckets bounced slightly. Aaron's eyes grew wide, and Lila clapped her hands with excitement. They moved closer, standing right in front of Tom as he played. Myra watched with surprise. The janitor was not just tapping randomly. He was drumming in patterns, creating fast beats and slow beats. His face showed focus, but also a quiet joy, as if he was sharing something important without needing words. Lila touched Tom's arm and pointed at one of the smaller buckets. Tom smiled and handed her one of the sticks. With a shy laugh, she struck the bucket. The vibration made her eyes shine. Aaron quickly joined, and soon both children were copying Tom, drumming together on the buckets. Their little hands moved fast, their faces full of light. For the first time in a long while, Myra saw her twins look truly alive with excitement. She stood frozen, feeling a strange mix of emotions. She had hired the best tutors, bought the best toys, and tried so hard to give them everything, yet this simple act with the janitor's buckets had given them a joy she could not remember seeing before. Tom noticed Myra watching. For a moment he stopped, worried that he had done something wrong. But the twins waved their hands, urging him to continue. Lila's face begged him not to stop. Tom looked at Myra carefully. She gave a small nod, unsure of why her heart felt so heavy yet so warm at the same time. The rhythm grew stronger. Tom drummed on 3 buckets at once, then switched patterns, showing the twins how to follow. Aaron and Lila copied him eagerly. They could not hear the music, but they could feel it through the vibrations and see it through the movements. They laughed silently, their shoulders shaking with happiness. Myra leaned against the glass wall, her thoughts racing. She had seen many impressive deals, heard many clever speeches, but nothing had touched her like this quiet scene. A janitor and 2 children, lost in a world of rhythm, speaking in a language that needed no sound. Time passed quickly. When the last bucket roll ended, Aaron and Lila clapped hard, their eyes shining. They touched Tom's hand in thanks. Tom simply smiled, nodding gently. Myra stepped forward, unsure of what to say. "Tom, she said softly, her usual sharp tone gone. You play well. Tom gave a small shrug. Just something I picked up years ago. I didn't know they would like it. They didn't just like it, Myra whispered, glancing at her children who were still tapping the buckets on their own. They loved it. Something stirred inside her, something she had not felt in a long time. She did not yet know what it meant, but she knew this moment would not be forgotten. And what happened next, later in the company kitchen, would change the way Myra saw her children, her staff, and even herself. The office was nearly empty that evening. Lights glowed softly above the long hallways, and only the hum of machines could be heard. Myra closed her office files and leaned back in her chair. Her eyes kept drifting toward the lounge where Aaron and Lila were still with Tom. The twins sat on the floor near the buckets, drumming and laughing with bright faces. Myra felt strange. She was a woman who solved problems with logic, who spoke to investors without fear, yet watching her children so alive because of a janitor's buckets left her without words. She had given them many expensive gifts, but none had stirred their joy the way this simple rhythm had. Time to go home, she finally said, stepping into the lounge. The twins signed to her quickly with their hands, asking if they could stay a little longer. Myra looked at Tom, who seemed unsure. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. A few more minutes, she said. While the twins continued playing, Myra asked Tom quietly, "Where did you learn to do that?" Tom looked down for a moment. "I grew up with little. We did not have drums, so we used buckets. Music was the only way to feel light when life was heavy." His voice was calm, but there was depth in his words. Myra nodded slowly. She wondered how such a man, whose job was to clean floors, carried something so rare within him. A little later, Tom stood and lifted the buckets. "These need to be cleaned," he said kindly. "Would you like to help me carry them to the kitchen?" Aaron and Lila jumped up with excitement. They loved being helpful. Myra followed behind as Tom led the way. The company kitchen was large, filled with shiny counters and polished sinks. The smell of soap still hung in the air from earlier cleaning. Tom placed the buckets near the sink and began washing them. The twins climbed onto stools, watching closely. Then something unexpected happened. Tom turned one of the clean buckets upside down and tapped it again. The sound bounced off the kitchen walls, clearer than before. Aaron leaned forward, feeling the vibration through the counter. Lila placed her small palm flat against the bucket, smiling when she felt the beat travel into her hand. Tom noticed and gently placed her hand on his chest as he tapped. She could feel the rhythm inside him, steady like a heartbeat. Her eyes widened, and she signed to Aaron quickly. He copied her, pressing his hand on Tom's arm while the bucket shook beneath the rhythm. Myra stood at the door, frozen. She saw her children not only smiling but also connecting with another person in a way she had never witnessed. They were learning a language of touch, movement, and vibration, one that needed no spoken word. Tom began showing them simple patterns. He tapped slow, then fast, then paused to let them try. The twins copied with excitement, laughing silently when they missed a beat, then trying again with determination. Tom did not rush them. His patience filled the kitchen like warm light. After a while, Lila pointed to the row of pans hanging above the counter. Tom raised an eyebrow, then carefully took one down. He tapped it lightly with a spoon. The vibration was sharper than the bucket. The twins gasped with delight. Soon the kitchen became a playground of soundless music. Pans, lids, and buckets turned into instruments. Myra had never seen the kitchen used like this. She leaned against the wall, her eyes fixed on her children. For years she had carried guilt, wondering if she had failed them by not giving enough. But now she saw something different. They did not need perfection or endless gifts. They needed connection, and strangely, this janitor had given it to them without even trying. Aaron and Lila created their own rhythm, drumming side by side. Tom joined in with his calm smile. The three of them formed a circle of energy, their bodies moving together in perfect harmony. It was not music for the ears, but music for the heart. For a moment Myra's vision blurred. She realized tears had filled her eyes. She quickly wiped them away, not wanting Tom to notice. But he glanced up and gave her a knowing look. It was not pride, not arrogance, but simple understanding. Finally, when the children grew tired, Tom stacked the buckets neatly. Aaron and Lila hugged him without hesitation. Tom patted their shoulders gently. Myra walked closer, her voice quiet. "You did something I could not," she admitted. "You gave them joy I could not find for them." Tom shook his head. "You give them love every day. They only needed someone to show them another way to feel the world. You are still their greatest gift." Myra was silent. Those words stayed in her heart. That night, as she drove home with the twins asleep in the back seat, Myra kept thinking of the kitchen. She thought of Tom's patience, of the twins' glowing faces, and of the strange pull in her chest. Something had shifted inside her, though she did not yet understand what it meant. She knew one thing clearly. Tomorrow, she wanted to see what would happen if she invited Tom again. The next morning, sunlight streamed into Myra's home through tall windows. Aaron and Lila were already awake, moving their hands in fast signs to each other, replaying the fun they had in the kitchen with Tom. Myra watched them while sipping her tea. She could not stop thinking about last night. The image of her twins drumming with such joy stayed fresh in her mind. At the office later that day, Myra walked past the employees with her usual serious look. People greeted her nervously, but her thoughts were elsewhere. When she reached her office, Aaron and Lila settled in the lounge as always. But this time, Myra did not feel at ease leaving them with only crayons and puzzles. She wanted them to experience that spark again. In the afternoon, she went to find Tom. She found him in the storage room, sorting cleaning supplies. He looked up with mild surprise when she entered. Few people ever came to this part of the building. "Tom," Myra said, her tone softer than usual, "if you have time later, would you join my children again?" Tom blinked, unsure if he had heard her right. "Of course, if you want. But I do not wish to disturb." "You are not disturbing," Myra replied firmly. "They need what you gave them yesterday." Tom gave a small nod. That evening, the buckets once again became instruments. Aaron and Lila rushed to Tom with wide smiles, pulling at his sleeves to start. Myra stood nearby, half watching, half lost in her own thoughts. She wondered why she, with all her resources, had never thought of something so simple. The days began to form a new rhythm. Every evening after office hours, Tom spent time with the twins. Sometimes it was in the lounge, sometimes in the kitchen. He showed them not just how to drum but also how to notice vibrations in tables, floors, and even their own chests when they tapped softly. Aaron loved speed. He tried to drum as fast as possible, his small hands moving like sparks. Lila, on the other hand, loved patterns. She repeated rhythms slowly until she mastered them, then added her own touches. Tom encouraged both styles, never correcting too harshly, only guiding gently. Myra began to notice changes. Her twins seemed more confident. They signed to each other with more energy, and they even signed to her more often, as if eager to share. They began drawing drums and buckets in their sketchbooks, filling the pages with circles and sticks. One evening, Myra entered the kitchen and found them not waiting for Tom but already drumming on pots by themselves. They laughed silently, clapping when they matched beats. Myra stood there quietly, realizing that something inside them had awakened. She turned her eyes toward Tom, who was leaning against the counter, watching the children with a calm smile. There was no pride in his face, only gentle care. Myra felt a strange warmth in her chest, the same one she had felt that first night. Later, when the children were asleep, Myra found herself speaking to Tom again. "Do you know what you are doing for them?" she asked. Tom looked down at his hands. "I only give them what I had when I was young. A way to feel part of the world. For children like them, vibrations can be music. They deserve that chance." Myra was silent. She thought about how much time she had spent in meetings, chasing numbers, and yet this man, with so little, had given her children something priceless. The next day, Myra's assistant noticed the change too. "The twins look brighter these days," she said carefully. Myra only gave a small smile. She was not used to discussing her private life with anyone, but she knew it was true. A week passed, and one afternoon Myra walked into the kitchen to find not just Tom and her children but also 2 other workers from the office. They had gathered around, curious about the soundless music. The twins showed off their drumming proudly, and the workers clapped. Myra was startled at first. She worried about what people would think, but when she saw the joy on her children's faces, she let her fear go. The kitchen had turned into a place of connection, not just for Aaron and Lila but for others too. That night, as she drove home, Myra thought deeply. She wondered if she had been too blind all these years. She had built a company of steel and glass, but in a small corner of it, a janitor had built something far more human. She knew then that this was not just a passing moment. Something bigger was growing, and it was only the beginning. The company had grown used to seeing Aaron and Lila in the building. Most of the workers smiled when the twins walked by. They were quiet children, but lately their eyes shone brighter, and their hands moved quickly in cheerful signs. Word spread that the janitor, Tom, had something to do with this change. People whispered about how he played buckets in the lounge and made the twins laugh without a single word. Myra heard these whispers but did not stop them. She knew they were true. Every evening, the kitchen turned into a secret stage where Aaron, Lila, and Tom drummed together. The sound itself was not the magic. The magic was the rhythm that connected them. The children could not hear, but they felt every beat in their bodies. One Friday afternoon, as the week came to an end, Myra called Tom to her office. He entered nervously, carrying his cleaning cloth as if it was a shield. "Sit," Myra said gently. Her voice carried less sharpness than usual. Tom sat down on the edge of the chair. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Not at all," Myra replied. "I want to ask something. Would you be willing to help the twins show others what they are learning? Not just in the kitchen, but on a small stage, maybe here in the building." Tom's eyes widened. "A stage? I am only a janitor." Myra shook her head. "You are more than that. You gave my children a gift. I want the world to see them shine." For a long moment Tom said nothing. Then he gave a small nod. "If the children want it, I will help." When Myra told Aaron and Lila about the idea, their faces lit up. They signed excitedly, their little hands moving faster than Myra could follow. She understood enough. They wanted to perform. Preparations began in secret. In the staff hall, which was sometimes used for meetings, Myra arranged for a small stage to be set up. A few buckets, pans, and lids were placed neatly in a row. Tom came in during the evenings to guide the twins, teaching them to follow rhythms together. Aaron practiced speed, while Lila focused on steady patterns. Slowly, the two learned to join their styles. The first time they played together in front of Myra, she almost gasped. Their bodies moved in harmony, their faces glowing with confidence. Tom stood behind them, guiding gently when they lost track, but mostly letting them lead. The news of the performance spread through the company. At first, people were curious. Some were doubtful. Why would a CEO stop the busy office for 2 children and a janitor? But Myra stood firm. She wanted her workers to see something beyond reports and sales. The day of the performance arrived. Chairs were lined up in the hall. Employees filled the seats, whispering among themselves. Myra stood near the back, her heart beating faster than she expected. She looked at her twins, dressed neatly in simple clothes, standing proudly beside Tom. Tom tapped the first beat. The buckets shook with rhythm. Aaron jumped in with fast strikes, his face glowing with energy. Lila followed with steady taps, balancing his speed with her calm. The hall grew silent, every eye fixed on them. Though no sound filled the ears of the twins, the vibrations filled their hearts. They moved together, faster and faster, their small hands creating a rhythm that echoed through the room. Tom stepped back, letting them shine. When the last beat ended, Aaron lifted his stick high, and Lila gave one final strike. Silence followed for a breath. Then the hall erupted in applause. People stood, clapping and cheering. The twins looked at the crowd, their eyes wide, not hearing the sound but seeing the joy on every face. Lila turned to Myra, who signed to her with trembling hands, "You did it. Both of you." Aaron and Lila ran to Tom, hugging him tightly. Tom bent down, smiling softly. He did not need words to know how much it meant. Myra felt her chest grow heavy with emotion. For years she had feared her children would always be apart from the world, but now she saw them standing on a stage, being celebrated, understood, and loved. After the performance, workers surrounded the twins, showing them smiles and signs of praise. Some asked Tom how he thought of such an idea. Tom only shrugged. They already had the rhythm inside. I only showed them how to let it out. That evening, when the hall was empty, Myra stood with Tom near the buckets. "You changed something in this company today," she said. Tom looked puzzled. "I only helped 2 children." "No," Myra said firmly. "You reminded everyone that joy matters. That even in a place of work, hearts can be lifted. My twins gave us all a gift, and you made it possible." Tom lowered his eyes, unsure how to respond. Myra studied him closely. She realized she had never truly noticed him before. Yet now, he had become one of the most important people in her life. As she drove home with the twins that night, Myra thought of the performance again and again. She wondered what new doors had opened for her children, and perhaps for herself too. The performance changed more than Myra expected. 4 days afterward, employees stopped her in the hallway to speak about Aaron and Lila. Some admitted they had never seen children so full of life. Others said they had never thought about how people who could not hear might still enjoy music. A quiet shift had begun inside the company. People seemed lighter, kinder. Myra noticed the change in her twins too. They woke each morning with excitement, signing to each other about rhythms and patterns before breakfast. Their sketchbooks were now filled with drawings of drums, buckets, and even small stick figures drumming together. They wanted to practice every evening, not because someone told them to, but because it made them happy. Tom continued to guide them with steady patience. He never asked for attention, never demanded anything. He simply showed up, cleaned the floors, and when the work was done, he sat with the twins and played. Myra often found herself watching from the side, wondering how such a man with such a quiet job could hold so much power in his hands. One afternoon, as Myra sat in her office, her assistant entered with a message. A local school for children with hearing challenges heard about the performance, she explained. They want to know if Aaron and Lila would visit and show the other children what they learned. Myra raised her eyebrows. The school reached out. Yes, the assistant said with a smile. They said the story inspired them. That evening, Myra spoke to the twins about it. She used her hands slowly, making sure they understood. The school wants you to show your drumming. Do you want to? The twins signed to each other quickly, then turned back to her with wide smiles. They both nodded. The visit was arranged for the following week. On the day of the visit, Myra drove with the twins and Tom to the school. The building was modest, but filled with colorful art on the walls. Children ran about, signing and laughing with each other. Teachers welcomed Myra warmly, but their eyes kept glancing curiously at Tom, who carried the buckets. The performance was held in the school's assembly hall. Aaron and Lila took their places with confidence. Tom tapped the first beat, and the twins followed, drumming with bright energy. The other children sat forward, their eyes shining as they watched. Some clapped silently along, feeling the vibrations through the floor. When it ended, the room filled with hands waving in the air, the sign for applause. Aaron and Lila laughed silently, bowing proudly. The teachers signed to Myra that it was beautiful. One child even rushed forward, touching the buckets with eager hands, as if asking to try. Tom crouched down and handed the child a stick. Soon the hall was filled with many small hands tapping the buckets, pans, and lids. Laughter spread from one child to another. Teachers smiled, some with tears in their eyes. Myra stood at the back, her chest full of pride. She realized her twins were no longer just learning for themselves. They were now inspiring others, giving hope and joy to children who often felt cut off from the world. On the drive home, Aaron and Lila signed excitedly about the visit. They touched Tom's arm, thanking him again and again in their silent way. Tom only smiled, his eyes soft. Later that night, Myra spoke to Tom privately. "Do you see what you started?" she asked. Tom shook his head. "They started it. I only gave them a tool. It is their courage that carried it forward." Myra looked at him for a long moment. She was not a woman who easily expressed feelings, but something inside her wanted to say more. "Still, without you, none of this would have happened," she said softly. Tom gave a humble nod, saying nothing more. The weeks that followed brought new invitations. A community center wanted Aaron and Lila to perform. A small local newspaper asked Myra for an interview. She was surprised at how quickly the story spread, but she agreed, not for herself, but for her children. She wanted the world to see them, to understand them, and maybe to learn from them. Through it all, Tom remained the same. He wore the same simple clothes, cleaned the same halls, and carried the same buckets. But in Myra's eyes, he was no longer just a janitor. He was a guide, a friend, and perhaps something even more important. One evening, as she watched her twins fall asleep with smiles on their faces, Myra whispered to herself, maybe this is what life was missing. Not bigger deals, not more power, but moments like these. And though she did not say it aloud, she knew deep inside that her children were not the only ones Tom had changed. He had changed her too. The weeks of small performances turned into months. Aaron and Lila grew stronger in their skills. They no longer only copied Tom's rhythms but also created their own. Sometimes Aaron tapped a wild pattern, and Lila steadied it with her calm beat, making the two sound like one heart. Their joy spread wherever they went. Myra was proud. She had always wanted her children to be strong and confident, but she had never imagined they would find their strength through buckets and pans. She often thought back to the first time she saw Tom drumming in the lounge. It felt like years ago, though it had only been months. One morning, Myra received a call from an event organizer. The city was holding a cultural fair, and they wanted Aaron and Lila to perform with Tom. "We heard of their story," the organizer explained. "It would inspire many families." Myra hesitated. A company hall or a school was one thing, but a city fair would mean hundreds of people watching. She worried about how her children would handle it. But when she asked them, their faces lit up. They signed quickly, showing eagerness. They wanted the chance. So the plan was made. The fair was held in a wide open park, filled with stalls, food, and music stages. On the day of the event, Myra felt her heart race as she walked with Aaron, Lila, and Tom through the crowds. The twins clutched their drumsticks tightly, their eyes wide with excitement. Backstage, Myra crouched to look into their faces. "Are you ready?" she signed carefully. Aaron nodded fast. Lila smiled and gave a small thumbs up. Tom placed a hand gently on both their shoulders. His calm presence steadied them. When their turn came, the stage lights shone brightly. Hundreds of people sat on benches or stood in the open space, waiting. The announcer introduced them as two young twins who cannot hear but can feel the rhythm of life, guided by a humble friend. The crowd clapped as Aaron and Lila stepped onto the stage with Tom. Buckets and pans were lined neatly. For a brief moment, Myra feared they would freeze under the many eyes watching. But then Tom gave a gentle nod, and the drumming began. At first the rhythm was simple, but soon Aaron's fast strikes filled the stage with energy. Lila followed with steady beats, weaving in and out of her brother's wild pattern. The crowd leaned forward, drawn to the harmony. Tom added his own rhythm, supporting them without stealing their light. People clapped along. Children danced near the front. Some parents whispered to their kids, pointing at the twins with smiles. The vibrations from the stage spread through the wooden floor and into the benches. Even those who did not understand the story could feel something powerful. When the final beat ended, the silence was heavy for a moment. Then applause exploded. People stood, cheering loudly. Some waved their hands in the air, copying the sign of silent applause. Aaron and Lila looked at each other in disbelief, then laughed silently, their shoulders shaking with joy. Myra felt her eyes grow wet as she clapped. She had closed many business deals, received awards, and spoken at large events, but nothing had ever filled her with this much pride. Her children were not only accepted, they were celebrated. After the show, a woman approached Myra. She was from a music foundation that supported young talent. "Your twins have something rare," she said warmly. "We would like to sponsor lessons for them. They can learn not just drumming but also other instruments that use vibration and movement." Myra was taken aback. Lessons? She had never considered her children learning music in a structured way. She glanced at Aaron and Lila, who were still talking excitedly with Tom. Their hands moved fast, their smiles wide. "I will think about it," Myra said carefully, though inside her heart already leaned toward yes. On the way home, the twins signed non-stop about the stage, the crowd, and the applause. Tom sat quietly, smiling at their excitement. Myra watched him from the driver's seat. She thought about the offer and about how far things had come. Later that night, after putting the twins to bed, Myra found Tom cleaning in the hallway. She stopped him. "They offered lessons," she said softly. Tom raised his eyebrows. "That is good. They can grow even more." "Yes," Myra agreed, then paused. "But Tom, do you understand? This all began with you. A janitor who turned buckets into music." Tom shook his head. "No, Myra. It began with them. They had the music inside. I only showed them the door." Myra looked at him, her heart heavy with gratitude. She realized that life often placed treasures in the most unexpected places. And she knew now that meeting Tom had been no accident. The morning after the city fair, the house was filled with energy. Aaron and Lila bounced around, signing and laughing excitedly about the crowd and the applause. Myra watched them, her heart swelling with pride. The children had grown so much in confidence, and she realized that their world had expanded far beyond what she had imagined. Tom arrived that afternoon at the office as usual. He carried his buckets and a small bag of rhythm sticks. The twins ran to meet him, their faces bright. Myra followed quietly, watching the reunion. Tom smiled softly, lifting a hand for a silent wave, which the twins mirrored perfectly. "Today," Myra said softly, "you can choose what you want to do. No practice, no rules. Just play. The twins' eyes lit up. They ran to the kitchen, grabbing the buckets and small pans. Tom followed, and soon the three were drumming together, their hands moving with speed, pattern, and harmony. Myra leaned against the counter, a gentle smile on her face. She realized that what started as a small game had become a way of life for them. After a while, Myra spoke to Tom privately. "We received the offer for music lessons," she said. "Do you think they are ready?" Tom looked thoughtful. "They are ready for anything now. They have learned rhythm, patience, and joy. Lessons will help them grow, but the heart is already full." Myra nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I never thought a janitor could teach my children so much," she said quietly. Tom only smiled, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. The music lessons began the following week. Aaron and Lila learned to use small percussion instruments designed for vibrations, feeling every beat. They practiced diligently, but always with joy. Myra sometimes watched them from the office window, amazed at how much they were learning and how happy they looked. At the company, life changed too. The story of the twins and Tom spread quickly. Employees began noticing small things they had ignored before, moments of connection, joy in simple acts, and the power of patience. The office became brighter, not just because of the windows and lights, but because of the energy the children and Tom brought every day. One evening, after a long day at the office, Myra asked the twins to join her in the kitchen. "I want to show you something," she said, her hands moving carefully in signs. She led them to a small table where she had arranged notebooks, pens, and sketch pads. "I want you to write or draw your rhythms. Imagine your music, then put it on paper so others can see it." The twins looked at each other in surprise, then at Myra. Slowly, they began drawing circles, lines, and patterns. Aaron drew fast, jagged lines, while Lila drew soft curves that intertwined with his patterns. Tom watched quietly, smiling. He understood that the children were learning not only music but also expression, creativity, and teamwork. Days turned into weeks. The twins performed at small community events, music schools, and gatherings for children with special needs. Everywhere they went, they inspired people with their silent rhythm. And Tom was always there, steady and calm, guiding them while letting them shine. Myra realized that her children had taught her something important too. She had spent so many years focusing on work, success, and control, but she had forgotten about joy, connection, and patience. Watching Aaron and Lila, and seeing what Tom had done for them, changed the way she looked at her own life. One quiet evening, Myra sat with Tom in the lounge. The twins were asleep, their small bodies tucked under blankets, smiles still lingering on their faces. Myra signed slowly, "Thank you, Tom. You gave them a gift, and you gave me a gift too." Tom looked at her calmly. "I only showed them the door. You opened it?" Myra smiled, understanding the truth in his words. Life often placed treasures in unexpected places. For her, it was a janitor who could make buckets sing, and for her children, it was a teacher, a guide, and a friend. From that day on, the company kitchen was never just a kitchen. It was a place of learning, creativity, and joy. Aaron and Lila continued to explore rhythm, and Myra continued to watch and learn. The bond they shared with Tom grew stronger with every drum beat, and the lessons they learned reached far beyond music. Myra knew that no matter what happened in the future, they would always carry this rhythm with them. It was more than music. It was a way of feeling the world, of connecting, and of living fully. And in that rhythm, they had found happiness, love, and a new beginning. The story of the janitor, the twins, and the CEO became a quiet legend in the company. It was a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary people could create the most extraordinary changes, and that joy could be found in the simplest things. Myra smiled, looking at her children sleeping peacefully. The world was vast, full of challenges, but she knew that together, with rhythm, patience, and love, they could face anything. The kitchen was no longer just a room. It was a place of magic.